All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are tackling a huge question that comes up in pretty much any modern software system: Kafka or RabbitMQ. Now look, this isn't just some minor technical choice. This is a big one. It's a decision that fundamentally shapes how your entire application is going to behave, how it scales, and how it recovers from problems. Getting this right is absolutely critical, so let's break it down.
So this is the central question, right? Which one is actually the right fit for your project? Because if you choose the wrong tool here, you could be setting yourself up for some serious headaches down the road. We're talking performance bottlenecks, lost data, or a system that's just impossible to scale. But don't worry, by the end of this, you're going to have a super clear framework to know exactly which one you need.
And we've got a clear path to get you there. First, we'll talk about the core problem we're trying to solve. Then we'll properly introduce our two main contenders, Kafka and RabbitMQ. After that, we'll break down the key differences, see them in action with some real-world examples, I'll give you a quick decision guide, and then we'll land on that final simple takeaway.
Okay, so here's the basic dilemma. In pretty much any app you build today, you've got a bunch of different little services that all need to talk to each other. You know, a user signs up, and suddenly you need to tell the email service to send a welcome email, the analytics service to record the event, and maybe the billing service to create a trial account. How do you manage all that chatter reliably without grinding your whole app to a halt? That's the messaging dilemma.
And this is exactly where our two heavyweights come in. Apache Kafka and RabbitMQ are two of the most popular ways to solve this problem. But, and this is the important part, they do it with completely different philosophies. They are not the same thing. So let's get properly introduced to each of them.
First up, Kafka. Now, the most important phrase to remember here is event streaming platform. Don't just think of it as a tool for passing messages around. Think of it more like a permanent, super fast record, like a logbook, of everything that has ever happened in your system. It's built from the ground up to handle and stream just massive amounts of data.
So, you'd reach for Kafka when you're dealing with insane scale. I mean, we're talking millions of events every single second. It's the go-to tool for things like real-time analytics dashboards, tracking every little user click on a website, or building these complex event-driven systems that have to react to a constant fire hose of incoming data.
Now let's meet RabbitMQ. Its core identity is a message broker. So if Kafka is this giant broadcast log of everything, RabbitMQ is more like a super smart and incredibly reliable postal service. Its whole job is to take a message from point A and make absolutely sure it gets to the right destination at point B, even if that destination is busy or temporarily offline.
And this is where RabbitMQ just shines. It is perfect for dishing out tasks to background workers. You know, things like sending an email or processing a photo after it's been uploaded. It's amazing at complex routing, and it guarantees that a message gets processed, thanks to this neat acknowledgement system. Plus, for these kinds of traditional jobs, it's often way simpler to get up and running.
Okay, so now that we've met them, let's put them in the ring together and really look at the key differences side by side. This is where the choice between them starts to get really clear.
This table really gets to the heart of it. Let's just focus on two huge ones: message storage and throughput. Look at Kafka. It stores messages for a long time, acting like a database or a persistent log, even after a message has been read. RabbitMQ, on the other hand, is temporary. It deletes a message as soon as the worker says, "Yep, I'm done with this." And that directly affects the next point, throughput. Because Kafka is designed for logging everything, it can handle millions of messages a second. RabbitMQ is more focused on reliable delivery, so its throughput is still high, but it's not in that same massive data firehose league.
And this is honestly the best way to visualize the difference. Think of Kafka as an unstoppable river of data. The data just keeps flowing, and different systems, your analytics team, your machine learning models, your monitoring tools, they can all dip into that same river whenever they want to get the data they need, and it doesn't affect the river at all. RabbitMQ, that's the reliable postman, carefully delivering a specific package to a specific mailbox. Once it's delivered and you sign for it, it's done, the package is gone. Theory is great and all, but let's see how these differences actually play out in the real world. Looking at some actual use cases is really the best way to get a feel for when you'd use which one.
So, picture a ride-hailing app like Uber or Lyft. You've literally got thousands of events per second just flooding in. Driver GPS locations, user ride requests, status updates. It's a ton of data. Kafka is perfect here. It can just drink all that data from the fire hose without breaking a sweat. Then, multiple different services can tap into that stream to do their own thing, like calculating surge pricing, detecting fraud, or updating that live map you see on your phone.
Now let's switch to RabbitMQ.
Let's say your app needs to send a welcome email when a new user signs up. You definitely don't want the user to sit there staring at a loading spinner while your server talks to an email service. No way. Instead, your app just instantly drops a little message into a RabbitMQ queue. A totally separate worker process picks it up, sends the email, and then sends an acknowledgement or an ACK back to RabbitMQ to say, hey, the job's done. Then the message is safely removed. The user gets a super snappy response, and you can be sure that email is gonna get sent.
So what is Kafka's unique superpower? It's the ability to replay events. Because Kafka keeps a log of everything that's happened, you can literally go back in time. Imagine you find a bug in your analytics code that's been running for a week. Oh no. What with Kafka? No problem. You just fix the bug, and then you tell Kafka, hey, replay the last 7 days of events through my new code. And boom, you get all the correct metrics. That is an absolute game changer that RabbitMQ just wasn't designed to do.
But RabbitMQ has its own superpower, managing complex, critical workflows where you cannot lose a single message. Think about something like payment processing. You need absolute guarantees. RabbitMQ gives you that with flexible routing, automatic retries if a service fails, and something called dead letter queues, which is basically a special inbox for messages that keep failing, so a human can look at them later. That level of reliability is non-negotiable when there's money on the line.
All right, we've seen the theory, we've seen the real-world examples. Now let's just boil all of this down into a really simple, actionable guide to help you make the right call for your next project.
So, let's make it super simple. You're going to choose Kafka if the words you're using are event streaming, big data, real-time analytics, or if you need the ability to replay messages. When you have a massive continuous flow of data that you need to capture and analyze from multiple angles, Kafka is your tool. On the other hand, you're going to choose RabbitMQ if the words you're using are background jobs, task queues, reliable delivery, or routing messages between your services for specific tasks. It's designed perfectly for that kind of targeted, guaranteed work.
We have covered a lot of ground, so let's boil this entire explainer down to one final, easy-to-remember sentence that just cuts right to the heart of the matter.
And here it is. This is the simplest way to think about it. Kafka is the best for event streaming and big data. RabbitMQ is the best for task queues and communication between microservices. You see the difference? One is a system of record, the other is a system of delivery. If you remember nothing else from this, remember that.
So there you have it. The choice isn't some big mystery anymore. It's a strategic decision, and it's based entirely on the kind of problem you're trying to solve. So the only question left is, now that you're armed with this knowledge, what awesome new system are you going to go build next?